Before I tell you this story, I need you to answer one question honestly. When did love start feeling like work? Was it a fight? Was it one specific moment? One thing said? One thing left unsaid? Or was it something quieter? A moment when you looked at the person beside you and realized you couldn't remember the last time you really talked. Not exchanged information, not managed the week together, really talked the way you used to. When time disappeared and you didn't notice. When being together felt like the point, not just the plan. If you're married, this story is your story. If you're not married yet, this story is your warning. And if you've ever loved someone deeply and watched that love slowly change shape, stay with me. Because by the end of this video, you'll understand something most couples never figure out until it's almost too late. You'll understand why love doesn't fail loudly, why it fades quietly, and, most importantly, what it actually takes to stop that from happening. Kemi sees Mike's name and smiles before she answers. Kemi was already smiling before she picked up the phone. She did not even know when it started happening. The way her face changed whenever Mike called. The way her voice softened before she said hello. The way a normal evening suddenly felt warmer because his name appeared on her screen. She answered. "Why are you calling me this late?" Mike laughed. "Because I knew you were awake." She tried not to smile too much, but she was already smiling. "You don't know that." "I do." "How?" "Because you think too much before you sleep." Kemi paused, not because the answer was clever, but because it was true. And somehow, Mike had started noticing things about her that other people missed. That was how their love felt in the beginning. Easy, warm, personal. Like being known without having to explain yourself every time. Mike did not just ask, "How was your day?" He asked, "What part of today tired you the most?" And Kemi would go quiet for a second because nobody usually asked it that way. Then she would talk, and he would listen, not with the kind of silence that waits for its turn to speak. With the kind of silence that made her feel safe enough to continue. Mike sitting in his parked car at night, phone to his ear, smiling quietly. Sometimes their calls lasted so long that one of them would fall asleep while the other was still talking. Sometimes they said nothing for minutes, just stayed there, breathing, present, connected, and somehow, silence with Mike did not feel awkward. It felt like comfort. When they were together, time behaved differently. Dinner became 2 hours. A short walk became half the evening. A simple goodbye became, okay, 5 more minutes, then 5 more, then 10, then one last hug that was never really the last. Kemi used to laugh and say, "Mike, go home." And Mike would say, "I'm trying." But he was not really, and she knew it. That was part of the sweetness, the knowing, the not wanting to leave. The feeling that love had found a rhythm they did not need to force. They became each other's favorite part of the day. Mike knew when Kemi was pretending to be fine. Kemi knew when Mike was carrying something but trying to sound normal. He would say, "I'm good," and she would say, "No, you're not. Talk to me." And he would laugh softly because she was right. She was almost always right. That was the beauty of it. They were not just attracted to each other, they were becoming familiar. And familiarity can feel like love has finally found a home. One evening, Kemi looked at him and said, "You know what I like about us?" Mike leaned back. "What?" She looked down for a moment, almost embarrassed by her own honesty. "I don't feel like I have to perform with you." Mike became quiet. Not the distant kind of quiet, the touched kind. Then he said, "That's how I feel with you too." And for a moment, neither of them said anything. They just sat there, letting the words settle. Because sometimes love does not need a dramatic confession. Sometimes it is one honest sentence that quietly changes everything. That night, when Mike walked Kemi to her car, he did not rush the goodbye. He stood there like a man who had found something he was not willing to treat casually. Kemi looked at him and smiled. "What?" Mike shook his head. "Nothing." "No, say it." He looked at her for a few seconds, then said, "I like who I am when I'm with you." Kemi's smile faded a little. Not because she was sad, because the words went deeper than she expected. She looked away, then back at him. "I like who I am with you too." And that was the season they would later miss. The season where love felt light, where talking was easy, where forgiving was quick, where everything about them felt possible. They were not pretending, they were not lying. They really loved each other. But what they did not know was this: they were falling in love in a season where love had no bills to pay, no shared home to manage, no families to navigate, no daily pressure sitting between them at the dinner table, no silent expectations hiding under simple sentences, no tiredness turning small things into big things, no marriage yet, just love, soft, exciting, beautiful. And because it felt so natural, they thought it would always feel that way. But love before I do is not always the same love that wakes up after the honeymoon. And Kemi and Mike were about to discover that the hard way. Act 1. The beautiful dating season. After that season began, their world started to build itself around small routines. Good morning messages, voice notes during traffic, random pictures of food, little jokes that made sense only to them. Nothing about it felt forced. That was what made it feel special. Mike would call Kemi on his lunch break just to hear her voice. Sometimes he only had 7 minutes, but he still called, and Kemi loved that. Not because the calls were long, but because they made her feel remembered. There is something powerful about feeling remembered in the middle of someone's busy day. It makes love feel intentional. It makes you feel chosen. And Mike had a way of making Kemi feel chosen. On days when Kemi felt overwhelmed, Mike could sense it. He did not always have the perfect words, but he showed up. "Have you eaten? Drink water. Call me when you're free." Simple things, but simple things can feel deep when they come from someone who is paying attention. And Kemi started to let him in, slowly, then fully. She told him about her fears, how she did not want to end up in a relationship where she had to beg for attention, how she wanted love that felt emotionally safe, how she wanted a partner who could hear her heart, not just her words. Mike listened, and when she finished, he said, "I don't ever want you to feel alone with me." Kemi believed him, because at that point, she did not feel alone with him. Mike had his own fears too. He did not say them all at once. Men like Mike rarely do. He revealed them in pieces. A sentence here, a pause there, a small confession hidden inside a joke. He told her he wanted a peaceful home. Not a perfect one, a peaceful one. He had seen too much tension growing up, too many people who loved each other but did not know how to speak without hurting each other. Too many homes where silence was not peace. It was avoidance. So when he said he wanted peace, Kemi heard maturity. She heard gentleness. She heard safety. And Mike heard the same thing in her desire to feel loved. They both thought they were saying the same thing, but they were not. Not exactly. Kemi wanted emotional closeness. Mike wanted emotional calm. Kemi wanted a love that could talk through difficult feelings. Mike wanted a home where difficult feelings did not become conflict. They did not know this yet, because dating has a way of making differences look small, especially when chemistry is strong. Their love grew quickly, but not carelessly. They spent time together. They talked about the future. They imagined their home. They discussed children, travel, career plans, family values, what they wanted marriage to look like, and every conversation seemed to confirm what they already felt. This is it. They loved the same kind of quiet evenings. They both valued family. They both wanted stability. They both believed in commitment. And when people asked Kemi about Mike, she smiled before answering. He's different. When people asked Mike about Kemi, he did not say much. He only smiled and said, "She gives me peace." But love can feel peaceful before it is tested, and some people mistake untested peace for proven strength. The first time Kemi imagined marrying Mike was not during a serious conversation. It was at someone else's wedding. They were sitting together, watching the bride and groom dance. Mike leaned toward her and whispered, "That will be us one day." He said it softly, like it was obvious. Kemi turned to look at him. There was no fear in his face, no uncertainty, just quiet confidence. And in that moment, something settled in her. Not excitement, not butterflies, something deeper. Belief. Act 2, the proposal. Mike's proposal was simple, no large crowd, no dramatic performance, just the two of them. And somehow, that made it more beautiful. He had taken her to a quiet place after dinner. Kemi noticed he was quieter than usual, not cold, not distant, just focused. She asked, "Are you okay?" He smiled. "Yes, I'm just thinking." "What are you thinking about?" He looked at her for a moment, then took her hand. That was when she knew. Something was happening. Her heart started racing. Mike took a breath, and for the first time that evening, his confidence looked nervous. "Kemi, before I met you, I knew what I wanted in theory, but with you, I started seeing it in real life." Kemi's eyes filled slowly. He continued, "You are not just someone I love, you are someone I want to choose, again and again." He paused. "I don't want to just love you when it's easy. I want to choose you when it's not." Then he asked her, and Kemi said yes before he could fully finish. It was beautiful. It was sincere. It was everything they wanted it to be. But neither of them understood the weight of the promise, because when it is not easy had not arrived yet. They had known inconvenience. They had known small disagreements. They had known moments of missing each other, but they had not known the daily pressure of becoming one life. They had not known what happens when love moves from special moments into ordinary routines. They had not yet met the version of each other that would show up under stress. And everyone has a version that shows up under stress. Act 3, the wedding and honeymoon. The wedding came with color, noise, beauty, and expectation. Kemi woke up that morning with her heart full. There were people everywhere. Someone adjusting her dress. Someone asking for the rings. Someone calling her name from another room. But beneath all the movement, Kemi felt calm. Because she was marrying Mike. Mike was calm too, at least on the outside. His friends teased him. His family congratulated him. Everyone was excited. But there was a moment, just before the ceremony, when Mike stood alone. He looked at himself in the mirror, straightened his jacket, and whispered, "God help me." Not because he doubted Kemi, but because something in him understood that he was stepping into responsibility. Love had brought him here, but responsibility was waiting on the other side. Kemi walking in. Mike sees her. When Mike saw Kemi walking toward him, everything else blurred. The noise, the movement, the guests. For a moment, he saw only her. Kemi saw his face and almost cried again, because he looked at her like she was home. The ceremony was beautiful. Vows spoken, rings exchanged, hands held, prayers said, people clapped, people cried, people danced. And all through the day, Kemi and Mike kept finding each other in the crowd. A look here, a smile there, a silent, "Can you believe this is us?" Everyone said the same things. "You two are perfect together. This is such a beautiful love. You can see the connection." And they could, because it was real. Kemi and Mike were not pretending. They were deeply in love, but sometimes people can be truly in love and still be unprepared for marriage. Those two things can exist at the same time. The honeymoon felt like proof. Proof that marriage would be sweet. Proof that they had made the right decision. Proof that their love could only get better. They woke up slowly, no alarms, no deadlines, no one asking for anything. Just sunlight across the room and the sound of each other moving through the morning. Mike would reach for Kemi's hand before fully waking up. Kemi would smile and pretend she was still asleep. They laughed over breakfast, took too many pictures, talked about the wedding, talked about their future, talked about the kind of home they wanted. One evening, they sat together watching the sunset. Kemi rested her head on Mike's shoulder and said, "I wish we could stay here forever." Mike kissed her forehead. "We'll take this feeling home." And Kemi believed him. Mike believed himself too. But some feelings do not survive unchanged when they meet routine. Not because they are fake, but because they were born in an environment without pressure. And pressure reveals what romance can hide. Then they came home. And that was the moment nobody warned them about. Not the wedding, not the vows, not the honeymoon. Coming home. Because within a few weeks, Kemi would start asking a question she never imagined asking. What happened to us? And Mike would be asking a completely different question. Why does marriage suddenly feel so heavy? They still loved each other. Nobody cheated. Nobody left. Nobody stopped caring. Yet something was quietly slipping through their fingers. In part 2, you'll see how two people who were deeply in love slowly began drifting apart, and the painful lesson that almost every married couple eventually has to learn. Don't miss it.